I pushed open Patricia's study door and froze. My son Tyler was standing beside our family lawyer, whispering urgently over a stack of documents spread across my wife's mahogany desk. Patricia had been gone only 9 days, and here they were, handling her will like it was a business transaction. Tyler didn't even flinch when he saw me. He just smiled that cold smile I'd been seeing more often lately, and said, "Don't worry, Dad. Mom wanted her money to go to someone who actually knows how to use it responsibly." My knees felt weak as the words hit me. This was my own son, standing in my dead wife's study, discussing how to divide her fortune while I was still struggling to get through each day without her. I stared at the papers scattered across the desk, trying to process what I was seeing. Legal documents, financial statements, and what looked like multiple versions of Patricia's will. "What's going on here?" I asked quietly. Tyler exchanged a look with the lawyer that made my stomach drop. "We're just taking care of some paperwork, Dad. Nothing you need to worry about." That was the moment I realized my own son was planning to erase me from my wife's legacy while I was still grieving her loss. Later that night, I sat alone in my living room, staring at the camera on my phone as I prepared to record something I never thought I'd need to say. "Before I tell you how all this started," I said, my voice barely steady, "I have to ask you for a favor. Write in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything to me right now." I paused, feeling the weight of what I was about to share. What I'm about to tell you is something I never thought could happen in my own home. My name is William Marks, and I'm 68 years old. 9 days ago, I buried my wife Patricia after 43 years of marriage. My voice cracked as I continued. But this isn't just a story about grief. It's about betrayal. It's about discovering that the son you raised and loved unconditionally can look you in the eye and try to steal everything your spouse worked for. I took a deep breath. Because the son I raised, the boy I taught to ride a bike and help through college, was about to become my enemy. It started with whispers at Patricia's memorial service. I overheard Tyler talking to several family friends, explaining how overwhelming everything was for me, how I was too emotional to handle complex financial matters. "Dad's really struggling," he told my neighbor with practiced concern. "The grief has hit him hard, and he's not thinking clearly about practical things." Within days, those whispers spread. At the grocery store, people looked at me with pity. At the bank, the teller spoke to me like I was confused. My own doctor's receptionist asked if I needed help understanding my appointment reminder. Tyler was building a narrative about my incompetence, painting me as a grieving widower who couldn't be trusted to make important decisions. The most painful moment came when I visited Patricia's favorite charity, where we'd volunteered together for years. The director pulled me aside with gentle concern. "William, Tyler mentioned that you might need some help managing things. We're here for you if the financial responsibilities become too much." I realized then that my son had been systematically undermining my reputation, preparing people to accept his version of events when he made his move. Everyone thought they were being kind to a confused old man who needed protection from himself. 3 days later, Tyler called a family meeting and invited our family lawyer without consulting me. I walked into my own dining room to find them seated at the table with papers spread between them like they owned the place. "Dad, sit down," Tyler said with fake warmth. "We need to discuss Mom's estate and how we're going to handle everything going forward." The lawyer, a man named Harrison who'd handled Patricia's business affairs for years, looked uncomfortable as Tyler outlined his plan. "Obviously, Dad shouldn't have to worry about managing investments and legal matters during this difficult time," Tyler continued smoothly. "I'm prepared to take over all the financial responsibilities so he can focus on healing." He made it sound like a generous offer, like he was doing me a favor by relieving me of burdens I couldn't handle. "Tyler has some good ideas about estate management," Harrison said carefully, but I caught something in his tone that suggested he wasn't entirely comfortable with the situation. "What exactly are you proposing?" I asked. Tyler slid a folder toward me. "Just some paperwork to streamline things. Nothing complicated, just authorizing me to handle Mom's accounts and investments." I looked at Harrison, who was staring at me intently, like he was silently asking if I was okay with this arrangement. I picked up my coffee cup with steady hands and took a slow sip before responding. "I'll need time to think about this." The room went quiet. Tyler's confident expression flickered for just a moment. "Dad, There's really nothing to think about, he said, his voice getting slightly sharper. These are just routine documents that need to be filed. The longer we wait, the more complicated everything becomes. I stirred sugar into my coffee methodically, letting the silence stretch. Tyler mistook my calm for confusion, probably thinking I was too overwhelmed to understand what was happening. I appreciate your concern, I said finally. But I've been making important decisions for 68 years. I think I can manage a few more days to review paperwork properly. Harrison nodded approvingly. That's very reasonable, William. These documents should definitely be reviewed carefully. Tyler's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Fine. But we really shouldn't delay too long. There are deadlines and tax implications to consider. I smiled politely and said nothing more. Let him think I was just being cautious. He had no idea that I already knew about the real will Patricia had hidden in our bedroom safe, the one that made his entire scheme pointless. That evening, I opened Patricia's safe using the combination she'd made me memorize years earlier. Inside, beneath her jewelry and important certificates, I found an envelope labeled in her careful handwriting. For William. Only William. My hands shook as I opened it and pulled out legal documents I'd never seen before. At the top was Patricia's signature and a date from just 2 months before her death. It was an updated will, completely different from the one Tyler and Harrison had been discussing. I read through it twice, hardly believing what I was seeing. Patricia had left everything to me. Every dollar of her $62 million fortune. Every investment, every property, every business interest. Tyler's name appeared only once, in a clause that left any inheritance to my discretion. At the bottom was a handwritten note. William, if you're reading this, it means something has happened to me and someone is trying to manipulate you. This is my real will. Trust only yourself. I sat on our bed holding the document, feeling Patricia's love and protection reaching out from beyond the grave. She had known something might happen. She had prepared for this exact situation. Tyler thought he was playing a game where I didn't know the rules. He had no idea his mother had already beaten him. I spent the next hour carefully photographing every page of the Real will, making sure the timestamps and signatures were clearly visible. Then I pulled out the folder Tyler had left with me and photographed those documents too. The comparison was shocking. Tyler's version was dated 2 years earlier and contained completely different instructions. It named him as the primary beneficiary, with me receiving only a small allowance for living expenses. But the most damning evidence was in the signature. Tyler had forged Patricia's name, but he'd made a crucial mistake. He'd misspelled her middle name, writing Catherine instead of Catherine. It was sloppy work that proved he'd never paid attention to how his mother actually signed her name. I organized all the photos into a secure folder on my phone, then made backup copies on my computer. Every detail was documented with dates, times, and clear evidence of the forgery. Tyler thought he was being clever, manipulating a grieving widower who wouldn't know how to fight back. He had no idea he was walking into a trap that would destroy him. I locked the real will back in the safe and went to make myself dinner, feeling calmer than I had since Patricia's death. For the first time, I had hoped that justice would prevail. The next morning, I called Harrison privately from my car while Tyler was at work. Harrison, I need to ask you something confidential. When did Patricia last update her will? There was a pause. William, I can't discuss specifics over the phone, but why don't you come to my office this afternoon? Bring any documents you have questions about. When I read him the date from the real will, I heard him suck in a sharp breath. That's much more recent than what Tyler showed me, he said carefully. William, if you have documents with that date, this changes everything. What do you mean? I mean the will Tyler presented to me may not be the most current version. And if there's a more recent will, then everything we discussed yesterday is invalid. Harrison's voice became urgent. William, don't sign anything Tyler gives you. Don't agree to any transfers. And bring those documents to my office immediately. I could hear typing in the background as he checked his calendar. Can you be here in an hour? I'll be there in 30 minutes. Good. And William, don't mention this conversation to Tyler. Not yet. I hung up feeling vindicated. Even the lawyer could see that something was wrong with Tyler's version of events. For the next week, I played along with Tyler's scheme perfectly. I let him talk, let him explain his plans, let him become more confident in his manipulation. Every conversation was an opportunity to gather evidence. Harrison had advised me to document everything Tyler said and did, building a comprehensive case of attempted fraud. "I know this is all overwhelming for you, Dad," Tyler said during one of his visits. "But you don't need to worry about any of the financial stuff anymore. I'll handle all the investments, all the legal matters, everything." I nodded and asked simple questions, letting him believe I was gradually accepting his authority. "What about the house?" I asked. "You can stay here as long as you want, obviously. But I'll need to handle the ownership transfer and property taxes. It's complicated stuff that you don't need to stress about." He was so confident, so convinced that he'd successfully convinced me to hand over my life's work. "You're very thoughtful to take care of all this," I said, letting him think his manipulation was working. Harrison had told me to keep recordings of these conversations, and Tyler's arrogant words would become the evidence that destroyed him. The most humiliating moment came when Tyler showed up at my doctor's office, loudly explaining to the receptionist how he was helping Dad manage his affairs because grief had made me forgetful and confused. The entire waiting room heard him describe me like I was a senile old man who couldn't handle basic responsibilities. "He's been struggling since Mom died," Tyler announced to anyone who would listen. "I'm trying to help him with the financial stuff, but he gets overwhelmed easily." I sat there listening to my own son destroy my reputation in public, painting me as incompetent to strangers who had known me for years. Later, at the grocery store, the cashier spoke to me slowly and loudly, like Tyler's comments had convinced her I was mentally impaired. The humiliation lit a fire in me that I hadn't felt since Patricia's diagnosis. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about my dignity, my reputation, and my right to live my life without my own child sabotaging me. That night, I called Harrison and told him about Tyler's public comments. "Perfect," he said grimly. "Public statements about your alleged incompetence will actually help our case." He's creating evidence of his own malicious intent. Harrison requested a private meeting with Tyler to review the documents he'd submitted. I wasn't invited, which was exactly what we'd planned. Tyler arrived at Harrison's office with his forged papers, confident that he was about to secure legal control over Patricia's estate. "I think these documents are exactly what we need to protect William and ensure the estate is managed properly," Tyler told Harrison, sliding the folder across the desk. Harrison examined the papers carefully, his expression neutral but professional. "Tyler, I need to ask you directly. Are you certain these are the most current versions of your mother's legal documents?" "Absolutely. Mom updated everything 2 years ago when she was worried about Dad's age. She wanted to make sure someone responsible would handle things if something happened to her." Tyler's confidence was unshakable. He truly believed his story was bulletproof. "And you're prepared to swear under oath that these documents represent your mother's final wishes?" "Of course. I was there when she signed them." Harrison made notes while Tyler talked, documenting every lie for the legal record. Later, Harrison called me with a grim update. He just committed perjury in my office. He's claiming he witnessed signatures that we both know are forged. I started carrying my phone everywhere, recording conversations whenever Tyler visited. He was becoming increasingly arrogant, probably thinking his plan was working perfectly. During one visit, he called his friend while I was in the next room, not realizing I could hear every word through the thin walls. "It's going exactly like I planned," he bragged. "Dad is completely overwhelmed, just like I knew he would be. He's basically handed everything over to me already." His voice was full of contempt as he continued. "He's old and confused, and he won't fight me on anything. By next week, I'll have complete control of Mom's money. What if he changes his mind?" His friend asked. Tyler laughed. "He won't. He can't handle any of this stuff, and everyone knows it. Even his doctor thinks he needs help managing his affairs." The audio was crystal clear on my phone's recording app. Every arrogant word was being captured for Harrison to review. $62 million, Tyler said with satisfaction. "All because Dad is too weak to stand up for himself." I saved the recording and added it to the growing file of evidence. Tyler was so confident in his manipulation that he was confessing his entire scheme to anyone who would listen. Harrison called an emergency meeting for the following Monday. He instructed me to bring the real will in a navy blue folder identical to the one Tyler had been using. "We're going to switch the documents," Harrison explained. "Tyler thinks he's coming in to finalize his fraudulent paperwork. Instead, He's going to face the truth about what his mother actually wanted. I spent the weekend preparing mentally for the confrontation. This would be the moment when Tyler's scheme collapsed completely. Monday morning, I arrived at Harrison's office early and placed Patricia's real will in the designated folder. Harrison reviewed it one more time, shaking his head at the clear evidence of Tyler's forgery. The handwriting analysis will be devastating, he said. Not only did he forge her signature, but he misspelled her middle name. It's amateur-level fraud. We arranged the folders carefully on Harrison's desk. Tyler's forged documents in one, Patricia's real will in the other. When Tyler arrives, I'm going to ask him again about the authenticity of his documents, Harrison explained. I want him to lie under oath one more time before we reveal the truth. The trap was fully set. All we had to do was wait for Tyler to walk into it. Tyler arrived precisely on time, carrying his own briefcase and wearing an expensive suit that he'd probably bought with money he thought he was about to inherit. Before we finalize everything, I need you to sign one more consent form, he told me, pulling out additional papers. Just confirming that you agree to the estate transfer. I picked up the pen and pretended to study the document carefully. Tyler was practically vibrating with anticipation, probably thinking he was moments away from controlling $62 million. I signed my name slowly, but deliberately wrote the wrong date, making the signature invalid while appearing to cooperate. Perfect, Tyler said, taking the paper back without noticing my mistake. This should be everything Harrison needs to process the transfer. Harrison watched the exchange with interest, noting Tyler's eagerness to rush through legal procedures that should have been reviewed carefully. Tyler, before we proceed, I need to ask you one final time. Are you absolutely certain that the documents you've provided represent your mother's most current and authentic legal wishes? Tyler didn't hesitate. Completely certain. These are definitely Mom's final instructions. Harrison nodded grimly. Then let's begin the review process. Harrison opened the first folder on his desk, the one containing Patricia's real will. Tyler couldn't see the documents from his angle, but I watched his expression carefully. Let me read through the current version of your mother's will, Harrison announced. Tyler leaned back in his chair with satisfaction, probably expecting to hear his name as the primary beneficiary. Instead, Harrison began reading Patricia's actual final wishes. I, Patricia Catherine Marks, being of sound mind and body, do hereby leave my entire estate to my beloved husband William Marks. The change in Tyler's expression was immediate. His confident smile faltered as the words registered. Furthermore, Harrison continued, any inheritance for other family members shall be at the complete discretion of my husband, to be distributed as he sees fit. Tyler's face went pale. Wait, that's not right. That's not what the will says. Harrison looked up calmly. This is the will dated 2 months before your mother's death. Are you saying you have a more recent version? No, but that's not the version I saw. The will I have shows different instructions. Harrison nodded thoughtfully. Then we have a problem, don't we? The room went completely silent as Tyler began to understand that his scheme was falling apart. Harrison pulled out Tyler's forged documents and placed them beside Patricia's real will. These are the documents you submitted, Tyler. As you can see, they're dated 2 years earlier than your mother's actual final will. Tyler stared at both sets of papers, his face cycling through confusion, panic, and desperate calculation. There must be some mistake, he said weakly. Mom told me she was leaving everything to me. She was worried about Dad's ability to handle financial matters. Harrison pointed to the signatures on both documents. Tyler, look at how your mother signed her name on each version. I watched Tyler's face as he realized his fatal error. On the real will, Patricia's signature clearly read Patricia Catherine Marks. On his forged version, he'd written Patricia Catherine Marks. You misspelled your own mother's middle name, Harrison said quietly. The room was dead silent except for Tyler's increasingly rapid breathing. Furthermore, Harrison continued, the bank has confirmed that your mother never met with any attorney 2 years ago to update her will. The only legal changes were made 2 months before her death, resulting in this document. Tyler's hands started shaking as he realized the scope of his mistake. You forged your mother's signature, Tyler. And you did it badly. Tyler's composure cracked completely. That's impossible. I would never forge Mom's signature. Someone else must have created fake documents. Harrison remained calm. Tyler, you brought these documents to me yourself. You claimed you witnessed your mother signing them. You swore under oath that they were authentic. I was mistaken. I thought they were real. You thought documents with your mother's name misspelled were real? Tyler's story was unraveling faster than he could create new lies. Every explanation he offered just highlighted how implausible his claims were. Someone must have tricked me, he said desperately. Maybe Mom was confused when she signed them. Maybe she made a mistake with her own name. Harrison pulled out a folder of Patricia's other legal documents, bank signatures, business contracts, insurance papers. Every single one showed her middle name spelled correctly as Catherine. Your mother signed hundreds of documents over the years, Tyler. She never once misspelled her own name. Tyler slumped in his chair as the evidence mounted against him. The handwriting analysis confirms that you forged her signature, Harrison continued. And the timeline proves you created these documents after her death, not before. Harrison opened Patricia's real will to a clause Tyler had never seen before. There's something else you should know about your mother's final wishes, Harrison said. She included specific instructions about inheritance distribution. He read aloud. In the event that any family member attempts to contest this will, manipulate its contents, or coerce my husband regarding its execution, that person shall forfeit any right to inheritance permanently. Tyler's face went white as the implications sank in. Furthermore, Harrison continued, my husband William shall have complete discretion over any gifts or inheritance to other family members, including the right to revoke such gifts if the recipient demonstrates greed, dishonesty, or disrespect toward his memory of our marriage. I spoke for the first time since the meeting began. Tyler, your mother knew exactly what kind of person you are. She wrote this clause specifically to protect me from being manipulated by family members who cared more about money than about her actual wishes. Tyler whispered, she can't have known. She knew everything, I said quietly. She knew you would try to take advantage of my grief. She knew you would forge documents and lie about her intentions. She prepared for exactly this situation. Harrison nodded. Your mother was protecting your father from you, Tyler. Harrison pressed a button on his desk, and my recorded conversation with Tyler filled the room. Tyler's own voice, clear and confident. Dad is completely overwhelmed, just like I knew he would be. He's basically handed everything over to me already. Tyler's face turned gray as he heard himself bragging about manipulating his grieving father. He's old and confused, and he won't fight me on anything. By next week, I'll have complete control of Mom's money. The recording continued with Tyler's friend asking about potential problems, and Tyler's dismissive response. He won't fight. He can't handle any of this stuff, and everyone knows it. $62 million. All because Dad is too weak to stand up for himself. When the recording ended, the room was silent except for Tyler's rapid breathing. Tyler, Harrison said grimly, you've just heard yourself confessing to attempted fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy to steal inheritance through deception. I never said those things, Tyler whispered. The audio is time-stamped and authenticated. You said exactly those things, in your own words, describing your plan to defraud your father. Tyler's eyes darted around the room like trapped prey, looking for any escape from the evidence mounting against him. You also publicly humiliated your father, claiming he was mentally incompetent, all while knowing you were lying. Harrison pulled out a legal document with an official letterhead. Tyler, forging legal documents is a felony. Attempting to defraud an estate is a felony. Elder abuse is a felony. He slid the paper across the desk. This is a formal complaint I'm filing with the district attorney's office. You're facing multiple criminal charges. Tyler stared at the document like it was a snake about to bite him. You could face up to 10 years in prison for these crimes. This is insane, Tyler shouted. I'm his son. I was trying to help him. By forging your mother's signature? By lying about her final wishes? By publicly claiming your father is mentally incompetent? Harrison's voice was ice-cold professional. Tyler, you committed multiple felonies while attempting to steal $62 million from your own father. I want to speak to my own lawyer, Tyler said weakly. That's your right. But I should warn you that the evidence against you is overwhelming. Audio recordings, handwriting analysis, timeline documentation, witness statements about your public claims regarding your father's competence. Harrison organized the papers on his desk with deliberate precision. You created a perfect record of your own crimes, Tyler. Tyler slumped back in his chair, finally understanding that his greed had destroyed his life. The court hearing was scheduled for the following week. Tyler arrived with his own attorney, looking pale and defeated compared to his earlier confidence. The judge reviewed all the evidence methodically: Patricia's real will, Tyler's forged documents, the audio recordings, and witness statements about Tyler's public claims regarding my mental state. Mr. Tyler Marks, the judge said sternly, you stand accused of multiple felonies related to attempted estate fraud and elder abuse. Tyler's lawyer tried to present a defense based on misunderstanding and family concern, but the evidence was too clear. The judge examined both versions of Patricia's will under a magnifying glass, noting the misspelled middle name and the obvious differences in handwriting. The forensic analysis confirms that you forged your mother's signature, the judge said, and the timeline proves these documents were created after her death, not before. She looked directly at Tyler. You attempted to steal $62 million from your own father using fraudulent documents. Tyler's lawyer requested leniency based on family stress and grief-induced poor judgment. The judge was unmoved. Grief doesn't excuse criminal fraud, counselor. She barely allowed Tyler to speak before rendering her decision. The judge's ruling was swift and comprehensive. After reviewing all evidence, this court finds that Patricia Catherine Marks' final will is authentic and legally binding. The entirety of her $62 million estate belongs to William Marks, her surviving husband. Tyler's mouth fell open like he'd forgotten how to breathe. Furthermore, Tyler Marks is hereby permanently barred from any claim to his mother's estate due to his attempted fraud and manipulation. The judge looked directly at Tyler with obvious disgust. Mr. Marks, you forged legal documents, lied under oath, and attempted to defraud your own father during his time of grief. This court finds your behavior particularly reprehensible given that you targeted an elderly family member in a vulnerable emotional state. She signed the official court order with decisive strokes. William Marks retains complete control over all assets, with full legal protection from further harassment or manipulation. Additionally, Tyler Marks will face criminal charges for forgery, fraud, and attempted theft. The district attorney will proceed with prosecution. Harrison squeezed my shoulder as the judge's words sealed Tyler's fate. The estate belongs entirely to you, William. Tyler has no legal claim to anything. After the hearing, Tyler followed me into the courthouse hallway, his earlier arrogance replaced by desperate pleading. Dad, please, he said, his voice cracking. We can work this out as a family. I made mistakes, but we don't have to let lawyers and courts destroy our relationship. I stopped walking but didn't turn around. I never meant for things to go this far, he continued. I was just trying to help you manage everything. I thought it would be too much for you to handle alone. Finally, I faced him. Tyler, you forged your mother's signature. You lied about her final wishes. You tried to steal everything she worked for. I was trying to protect the family money. You were trying to steal it. Tyler's eyes filled with tears, but I felt no sympathy. Dad, I'm your son. Doesn't that mean anything? You stopped being my son the moment you decided to manipulate your grieving father for money. I turned away from him and walked toward the courthouse exit. Don't contact me again, Tyler. You made your choice. Behind me, I heard him sobbing, but I didn't look back. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Back home that evening, I sat in Patricia's study, surrounded by the quiet peace of justice served. I placed her real will back in the safe where she had left it for me to find. The house felt different now, lighter, freer, like a weight had been lifted from every room. I made myself a cup of tea and sat on the porch Patricia had loved, watching the sunset she would never see again. But I could feel her presence, her love, her protection still surrounding me. For the first time since her death, I felt genuinely peaceful. The nightmare was over. Tyler's greed had destroyed our relationship, but it had also revealed the truth about who he really was. Patricia had known, and she had protected me even after her death. I pulled out my phone and called Harrison to thank him for his help. William, he said warmly, your wife was a remarkable woman. She knew exactly how to protect what mattered most. Yes, I agreed. She did. I spent the evening going through Patricia's papers, finally able to grieve properly without worrying about manipulation or theft. That night, I recorded one final message for the people who had followed my story. Greed destroys itself, I said, looking directly into the camera. But dignity protects you, even when the people you love don't. I thought about Tyler, probably sitting in his apartment facing criminal charges and a shattered future, all because he couldn't wait to inherit honestly. My wife left me everything because she knew I would honor her memory and use her legacy responsibly. Tyler lost everything because he proved he couldn't be trusted with either love or money. I blocked Tyler's number that night, deleting his contact information permanently. No more manipulation, no more lies, no more attempts to steal what wasn't his. The house was finally peaceful again. I walked into the rest of my life carrying Patricia's love, her trust, and every dollar she had left me to protect. Tyler had gambled everything on a scheme based on forged documents and lies. He lost it all. I won everything that mattered, my dignity, my independence, and the knowledge that love ultimately triumphs over greed. Patricia's final gift wasn't just money. It was freedom from those who would exploit grief for profit.